Let's get right into this, shall we? What we have here is a set of UFC trading cards from 2022. Now, my job today is going to be opening each and every last one of these packs of cards, and I've been a really big UFC fan long enough to where I should be able to give you at least one stat with every card if I know the fighter. But to give you a little bit of a backstory on these cards, this was actually a Christmas gift from my dad last year. And there's one package that I did open, and then the other five packs, they're still sealed. I haven't opened them. So I just want to give a shout out to my dad. Thank you so much for these cards. And hopefully we can take something very simple and turn it into something very exciting. So without further ado, let's get right into this and see what we can find. Starting out, before I pull these cards, I will tell you guys that based on last year, the fighter starting to, what would it be? Yeah, the fighter starting to your guys' far, I want to say, okay, we'll do this guy first. Mirror image, right? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing. The first guy right here, that's Alexander Volkanovski. He was, in those days, the UFC featherweight champion and is still currently the reigning champion. This guy is ridiculous. I think he has defended his UFC featherweight championship 5 or 6 times, and he's only lost one fight ever in his entire career. Actually, two, because he challenged Islam Makhachev. I think it was 3 or 4 months ago for the lightweight belt, and he did lose, but he sure put up one hell of a fight. The other guy, the next guy in the black shirt, that's Charles Oliveira. Back during this time of year, he was the current lightweight champion. And this guy happens to have the most submissions in all of UFC history, currently standing. The third guy on this box is Clover Teixeira. Last year during this time, he was a big-time UFC light heavyweight prospect. I think he was getting ready to challenge what's the name of that Polish fighter's name for the UFC light heavyweight belt. I can't think of his name for some reason right now, but he did beat Dominic Reyes for the vacant UFC light heavyweight championship belt after John Jones vacated it so he could move up to to heavyweight. Oh, I think it was Jan. No, that wasn't it. Never mind. I can't remember the name of that guy that Clover Teixeira beat. But anyways, the girl that's on the farthest point of the box, that's Zhang Wei Li, I believe. This girl is a monster. I think it was back in 2019. She currently had the UFC, I want to say, it was either flyweight or bantamweight belt. I think it was the flyweight belt. She had won it and was the current champion at the time. and she defended her belt against Joanna Jacek. I might have butchered her last name, but Joanna was ridiculous. She had like 7 or 8 title defenses, and for a long time, she was the reigning UFC light or flyweight champion. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get into these cards. We have got 6 count them, 6 of these packs of cards. There is one, like I said, that is already opened. So now let's just get to naming these. First one. Oh, Conor McGregor, the notorious one. Oh my goodness. What a start. This guy, for those of you who do not know who he is one of the most insanely biggest trash talkers the UFC has ever seen. He's also one of the most insanely tough guys that have ever existed in mixed martial arts. Before he signed with the UFC, I believe he had only lost 1 or 2 fights ever. But for a long time, he was undefeated in the UFC, and I believe Nate Diaz handed him his first loss in the UFC. They then rematched about a month later, and then Conor McGregor beat him in a very close fight. But other than that, the only other person who had been able to beat him was back in 2018. Khabib Nurmagomedov had the UFC lightweight belt and beat him, Conor McGregor, to defend it. Starting next, I'm going to try to go a little faster. Jamal Hill. He is the current UFC lightweight champion. He actually beat Glover Teixeira about 1 or 2 months ago for the UFC vacant light heavyweight belt. Next up, we have Mackenzie Dern. The name is very familiar to me. And the face looks a little bit familiar. But the person that I'm really thinking of when I look at her is Tecia Torres. But I do know a little bit about Mackenzie Dern. She's a very, very good submissionist. And you do not want to get taken down by her. Otherwise, you could be in some trouble pretty quick. Next up, we have Grant Dawson. I have no idea who that guy is. Forget that. Okay. Now to officially open up the first sealed pack. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. See if we can get this moving. Okay. We got Merab Dvalishvili. Merab Dvalishvili. Something like that is how you pronounce it. This guy is tough as nails. I've seen him fight once. I haven't seen a lot of his fights, but he faced his UFC idol, Jose Aldo, I believe, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, and beat him. It was a very close contested matchup. He could not take down Jose Aldo, but he won the fight because he was so much more aggressive, and this guy does not gas out ever. Next up we have Matthias Nikolai. I have no idea who that guy is. Plunk. Next up, we have Angela Hill. I think I've seen her fight once. She's got some fast twitch muscles and is a pretty explosive athlete, but she's definitely got weaknesses. If you can out technique her in strikes, and in wrestling, she's not that good. She's just really tough. Oh, Zhang Wei Li. She was one on the cover. You notice she has long hair right there. And she is the current UFC, I think, strawweight champion. It was not flyweight. Strawweight, which is 115 pounds. I'm sorry, you guys. I got that messed up. Joanna Jacek fought her in 2018, I think, for the UFC strawweight belt. And recently, Rose Thug Namajunas had the strawweight belt, and she lost to the Cookie Monster. I can't remember what her name is, but her nickname is the Cookie Monster. And then Zhang Wei Li, after losing to Thug Rose Namajunas, Rose lost to the Cookie Monster, and then Zhang Wei Li, fought the Cookie Monster and submitted her pretty fast. It just goes to tell you how interesting it is, because styles really do make matchups. Just because somebody has beaten this person or taken that person down or outstruck this person, it doesn't matter. There are certain fighters where anything can happen. Styles make matchups. And that's what happened with Zhang Wei Li and the Cookie Monster. I am freaking burning up in my jacket, so I'm going to take this crap off. Okay, moving on to pack number 3. Here we go, baby! First up, we have Amanda Nunes. Whoo. Now this is Amanda the Lioness Nunes. A while back, she dethroned Ronda Rousey, the former UFC bantamweight champion of the world. Ever since, she has achieved way more than Ronda Rousey. She is ridiculous. She is basically the Jon Jones of female fighters in the UFC. And just as I say that, next up we have Jon Jones himself. If you guys do not know who this is, you are living under a rock. Jon Jones is the current GOAT of the UFC. Nobody has achieved what he has. This guy is still undefeated. The only fight he ever lost was against this wrestler guy. He got DQ'd for using downward elbows. His name was Matt Hamill, actually, that he lost the fight because he did illegal downward 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock elbows. I think it was Mario Yamasaki that disqualified him. So he has only one registered official loss on his record, but nobody has ever beaten him fairly. Next up, we have Billy Quarantillo. I have no idea who that guy is. Clink. Next up, we have Andre Muniz. I have no idea who that guy is. Moving on to pack number 4. First up, we have Cynthia Calvillo. I have no idea who that is. Next up, we have Robert Whitaker. Oh, this guy is good. He is currently the number 2 best fighter in the UFC men's middleweight division. He has fought Israel Adesanya twice. The first fight, I believe Israel Adesanya knocked him out. The second fight went the distance. I think he took down Israel Adesanya twice, but he was able to stand back up immediately. For those of you who know Israel Adesanya, his takedown defense is just absolutely freaking ridiculous. But this guy, Robert Whitaker, has beat Yoel Romero twice, which is very impressive because Yoel Romero is an extremely strong grappler, very, very good wrestler. Next up, we have, how do you pronounce that? Viviane Araujo. Viviane Araujo. Yeah, Viviane Araujo. This is a sideways card, which stands differently than all the other cards. If you look at the back, it is different too. Look at the back of Robert Whitaker. See? It's vertical. This one's sideways. Anyways, I have no idea who that girl is. Ho ho! Ladies and gentlemen, we have got Nate Diaz. Oh my goodness. This guy is an incredible fighter. He is definitely for sure a fan favorite. He basically handed Conor McGregor his very first loss in the UFC as a catchweight fight. They rematched and then he lost to Conor McGregor in the rematch. But this guy, he doesn't have the greatest record, but he's done some pretty amazing things. He absolutely destroyed Donald Cerrone in a unanimous decision. This guy will be missed by many of us when he leaves the sport. I don't think he's very far from retirement, to be perfectly honest with you, but we'll see. I think now this guy's pushing 38 or 37, maybe even 39 years old. All right, let's open up the second to last pack now, see what we got. Starting first, we have Ian Gary. He looks kind of familiar to me, but let me read the back real quick. Following in another Irishman's footsteps, the future Ian Gary made his UFC debut in 2021. I've been dreaming of this since I was a kid when I'd see Conor McGregor rise, so it's exciting to be here. He said, making like McGregor, he knocked out Jordan Williams in the first round at UFC 268. Yep, I don't know who this guy is, you guys. Oh, there's another Zhang Weili. I already told you guys who that is. Ooh, we got Valentina Shevchenko. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a dominant force in the UFC's bantamweight division, I want to say. What is that? Known for performing a traditional Sugansi dance in the octagon following a victory, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko put her moves on full display after defeating Lauren Murphy via TKO at UFC 266. The dance paid homage to her homeland while also celebrating the fact that she retained her UFC flyweight title. She is a UFC flyweight. I think she defended this belt 7 or 8 times, maybe 8, maybe 9, maybe not that many. But she just recently lost, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, to a really tough Mexican chick. And yeah, she could definitely easily regain the belt back if she works hard enough. But she's getting a little bit up there in years, so we'll see what happens. Oh, next up we got Paulo Costa. This guy is a treat for any UFC fan. He fought Yoel Romero back in 2018. I believe it was at UFC 245 and won. This guy is known for his insane size for the UFC middleweight class. He literally looks like a 230 pounder before he cuts weight. It's just ridiculous. He's got excellent punching power. He's a very good grappler. He can pass your guard. Actually, his most recent fight, I believe, was against Luke Rockhold, and he was taking down Luke Rockhold in that fight and easily passed even his guard, which is very impressive because Luke Rockhold was one of the greatest fighters in the UFC for a long time. All right, we got our last pack. Let's see if we have any winners in here. Come on now. Okay. Starting first, we got Israel Adesanya. He is the current UFC middleweight champion of the world. He took his first loss in the middleweight division, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, against Alex Pereira. He had lost to this guy 2 other times before this fight in kickboxing. He then fought Alex Pereira again, I believe it was last month or the month before last, and ended up getting a knockout over him. And Israel Adesanya is one of the most greatest athletes ever. He is definitely the modern day Anderson Silva, and in my opinion, he's even more impressive than what Anderson Silva was, even when Anderson Silva was in his prime. This guy is the best striker in the entire UFC roster, hands down. He's absolutely freaking ridiculous. If you do not know who this guy is, you know now. Start looking up some UFC fights with him. Get a UFC Fight Pass account and load up on this guy. You will not regret it. Ooh. Next up, we got Michael Bisping. Okay. This guy was a very good UFC middleweight fighter. He did not lose very many fights at all. He, at one point, was undefeated in the UFC. At one point, he might have had a record of like 20 wins with 1 loss. He's known for his insane cardio. He's also a very good striker. He's a very good wrestler. He's a very good grappler. He's good at everything. He's one of the best fighters of all time. To give you guys a little stat, he actually went blind in one of his eyes. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. He fought a guy named Vitor Belfort, and Vitor Belfort landed a wheel kick, and his heel landed right in his eye, and it blinded him for life. Michael Bisping actually went on to fight, I think, 13 more times even after that fight. He just lied a lot in his interviews before fighting and told people that he could still see in the other eye, and he basically cheated his way through. Supposedly he was supposed to be disqualified, not even qualified to fight in the UFC anymore because of that kick. But he found a way to get it done, and he indeed did become a UFC middleweight champion by defeating Luke Rockhold by via knockout. Michael Bisping is one of the greatest of all time. If you do not know who this guy was, you do now. Next up, we have Austin Lingo. I have no idea who that guy is. And then next up, we have Juliana Avila, or Juliana. If she's Brazilian, then it's probably pronounced, the J is probably silent and pronounced with an H. All right, you guys, that's it. A little UFC lesson for you. Boom! Thank you for watching.